Kelly Neal stood beside his father's casket on a gray November morning in 2024, trying to memorize every detail of Richard Neal's peaceful face before they closed the lid forever. At 34 years old, Kelly had faced plenty of difficult moments in his life, but nothing had prepared him for this. His father, the man who had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but an engineering degree and $200 in his pocket, was gone. Richard had worked as a quality control manager at an automotive parts factory for 32 years, never making more than $68,000 a year, but he'd sacrificed everything to give Kelly opportunities he'd never had. 3 weeks ago, pancreatic cancer had stolen him in less than 4 months from diagnosis. He was 67 years old. But as Kelly stood there in the small chapel in suburban Detroit, surrounded by his father's friends and colleagues, he wasn't thinking about any of that. He was watching his wife check her watch for the 7th time in 20 minutes. Frida's fingers kept drifting to her wrist. A quick glance. Another. Then her eyes would scan the chapel entrance like she was expecting someone. Or worse, like she couldn't wait to leave. Each time she did it, something cold and sharp twisted deeper into Kelly's chest. This wasn't grief distraction. This was impatience. This was someone who wanted to be anywhere but here. Kelly felt his jaw tighten as she did it again. This time, Frida pulled her phone from her designer purse, one she'd insisted on buying last month for $400 they couldn't really afford, glanced at the screen, then quickly tucked it away when she noticed Kelly's Aunt Linda watching her. The gesture made Kelly's hands curl into fists at his sides. "Kelly, honey," his mother whispered from his other side. Margaret Neal looked smaller than he'd ever seen her, drowning in her black dress, her face drawn and exhausted. Her hand found his and squeezed. "Are you holding up okay?" "I'm fine, Mom," Kelly managed, the lie tasting like ash. He squeezed back, trying to ground himself in the warmth of her hand, instead of the ice spreading through his veins, as he watched Frida check her phone again. The service had drawn maybe 80 people to the small Methodist chapel, co-workers from the factory, neighbors from the modest 3-bedroom house in Warren where Kelly had grown up, friends from his father's community college English classes, former students from the free math tutoring Richard had offered at the public library every Saturday for 15 years. These were good people, working people, people who understood what Richard Neal had meant to this community. Frida looked like she'd rather be at the dentist. Pastor Williams was speaking now, his deep voice filling the chapel with memories of Richard's kindness and dedication. He told the story about how Richard had spent 6 months helping the pastor's nephew prepare for engineering school entrance, exams refusing any payment, how Richard had organized a fundraiser when the Martinez family lost their home to a fire, how he'd shown up every Sunday to help maintain the church building, always with a toolbox and a smile. Kelly tried to focus on the words, tried to let them wrap around him like a blanket, but Frida shifted beside him, crossing and uncrossing her legs. She checked her watch again. 11:43 a.m. What the hell was happening at 11:43 that mattered more than this? They had no idea what was coming. Frida had no idea that Kelly was about to discover something that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his marriage. After the service, people filed past the casket to pay their final respects. Kelly stood with his mother and younger sister Angela, accepting hugs and condolences, listening to story after story about his father's impact on people's lives. Each one made him prouder and sadder in equal measure. Frida stood slightly apart, smiling tightly when anyone approached her, but Kelly could see the way her eyes kept darting to the door. She checked her phone 3 more times during the receiving line, always turning slightly away as if she thought he wouldn't notice. "Your wife seems anxious," Angela murmured as they prepared to leave for the cemetery. His sister was 29, a social worker who'd inherited their father's gift for reading people. "Is everything okay?" "I don't know," Kelly admitted quietly. "She's been acting strange all morning." "Strange how?" "Just distracted, like she wants to be somewhere else." Angela's dark eyes sharpened with concern, but before she could respond, Frida appeared at Kelly's elbow. "The funeral director says we need to head to the cemetery soon. The procession is about to start." Her voice was tight, clipped, professional, like she was checking items off a to-do list instead of accompanying her husband to bury his father. The drive to Roseland Park Cemetery took 20 minutes through streets Kelly had known his entire life, Frida sat in the passenger seat of their 8-year-old Honda Civic, silent and tense. Kelly drove mechanically, following the hearse, his mind spinning. He'd met Frida 6 years ago at a community health fair where he'd been volunteering. She'd been working a booth for the medical billing company, where she was a supervisor, and something about her confidence and quick smile had drawn him in immediately. She was ambitious in ways he wasn't, always talking about climbing the corporate ladder, about wanting more than what her working-class background had given her. Kelly, content with his job as a high school math teacher, making $47,000 a year, had found her drive inspiring. But lately, over the past few months, something had shifted. She'd become distant, critical. She'd started making comments about their finances, about how they'd never get ahead on a teacher's salary, about how her friend Tiffany's husband made 6 figures in medical device sales. She'd pushed Kelly to look into pharmaceutical sales positions, to give up teaching for something more lucrative. Kelly had resisted. He loved teaching. He loved seeing kids' faces light up when they finally understood a difficult concept. He loved being the kind of teacher his father had encouraged him to be, someone who cared more about impact than income. Frida had started spending more time with Tiffany and her circle of friends, women married to men who drove BMWs and lived in the newer subdivisions, who took Caribbean cruises and hired landscapers. Kelly had tried to be understanding. Everyone needed friends, but the more time Frida spent with them, the more she seemed to resent their life. At the cemetery, they gathered around the gravesite under a white canopy. The November wind cut through Kelly's suit jacket, but he barely felt it. Pastor William said a few more words. Kelly's mother sobbed quietly. Angela held her, both of them shaking with grief. Frida checked her watch again. That's when Kelly felt something inside him crack. His father was being lowered into the ground, his mother was breaking apart, and his wife was more concerned with the time than with being present for the worst day of his life. As people began to disperse, offering final condolences and heading back to their cars, Kelly made a decision. He needed to know what was so important. He needed to understand why Frida couldn't give him this one day. "I'm going to ride back with Mom and Angela," Kelly said quietly. "Why don't you go ahead? I know you have things to do." Frida's head snapped toward him, surprise flickering across her face. "Are you sure? I can wait." "No, it's fine, really." He kept his voice neutral, but he was watching her carefully. "You've been checking your watch all morning. Whatever you need to do, go do it." Guilt flashed across her face, quick and unmistakable. "Kelly, I'm sorry. I know how this looks. It's just, there's something at work that—" "It's Saturday, Frida." The lie died on her lips. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "It's complicated. I'll explain later. I need to be somewhere at 1 o'clock. On the day of my father's funeral. I'm sorry." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I'll see you at home later, okay? We'll talk then." If you enjoy stories of shocking betrayals, hidden secrets, and justice served cold, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new stories here every day, each one more intense than the last one, and tell me where you are watching from. Frida left quickly, practically running to their car. Kelly watched her go, that cold feeling in his chest spreading like frost. Something was very wrong. He could feel it in his bones. He spent the next 2 hours at his parents' house, his mother's house now, accepting casseroles and sympathy from neighbors. His mother kept trying to be strong, but Kelly could see her crumbling. Angela stayed close, managing the visitors, making sure their mother ate something, being the capable, organized person she'd always been. Around 3 o'clock, Kelly excused himself. "I should get home. Check on Frida. Make sure she's okay." His mother nodded, understanding. "Go, sweetheart. Thank you for being here. Your father would be so proud of you." The words made his throat tight. He hugged her hard, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume and grief, then headed home. Their apartment was in a modest complex off 8 Mile Road, a 2-bedroom they'd rented for $900 a month for the past 4 years. Nothing fancy, but it was clean and safe, and Kelly had always been grateful for it. Frida had started calling it cramped about 6 months ago. Her car was in the parking lot. Kelly parked beside it and sat for a moment, his hands on the steering wheel. What was he about to walk into? Part of him wanted to just go inside, trust his wife, believe whatever explanation she offered. But another part, the part that had been growing louder over the past few months, knew that something fundamental had broken between them. He pulled out his phone and opened the Find My Friends app they'd set up years ago for safety. Frida's location showed her at home, but as Kelly stared at the little icon representing his wife, a memory surfaced. 3 weeks ago, the day after they'd gotten his father's terminal diagnosis, Kelly had come home early from the hospital. He'd been devastated, needing Frida's comfort, but she'd been on the phone in their bedroom, her voice low and urgent. And when Kelly had opened the door, she'd jumped like she'd been caught stealing. "I have to go," she'd said quickly into the phone. "Yes, Thursday, I'll be there." Then she'd hung up and smiled at Kelly, asking about his father with what seemed like genuine concern. But now, standing in the parking lot, Kelly remembered the guilt in her eyes, the way she'd tucked her phone away quickly, the way she'd been different after that call. His hands were shaking as he got out of the car. The November air bit at his face, but he barely felt it. He climbed the stairs to their second-floor apartment, his heart pounding harder with each step. The front door was unlocked. He pushed it open quietly. Voices. Frida was talking to someone. A man. Kelly froze in the entryway, his entire body going cold. "Can't keep doing this," Frida was saying. Her voice came from the living room, tense and emotional. "I know the timing is awful, but Kelly is already suspicious. Did you see how he looked at me at the funeral? Frida, you need to calm down." The male voice was unfamiliar, smooth and confident. "We've been careful. He doesn't know anything." "He knows something's wrong. God, I felt like such a horrible person today. His father died, and I couldn't even—" Her voice cracked. "This is so much harder than I thought it would be." Kelly's vision tunneled. His wife, another man, in their apartment, on the day they buried his father. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that for a moment he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "You said you'd leave him after the funeral," the man said. "Are you backing out?" "Leave him." The words detonated in Kelly's brain like a bomb. "No, I'm not backing out. I need time to do this right. He's going through so much." "You're making excuses, Frida. Either you want this or you don't. I've been patient, but I'm not going to wait forever while you play house with a high school teacher who's never going to give you the life you want." The contempt in the man's voice made Kelly's hands curl into fists, but he still couldn't move, couldn't reveal himself. Some part of him needed to hear all of it, needed to know exactly how far this betrayal went. "That's not fair," Frida protested, but her voice was weak. "Kelly is a good man. He's not ambitious like you. He doesn't want more out of life. And I do. I want more." "Then take it. We leave for Miami on Wednesday. I've got the condo lined up. The job offer is solid. You'll make triple what you're making now as my operations manager. But you need to tell him, Frida, you need to end this." Miami. A job offer. Operations manager. The pieces were clicking together in Kelly's brain, forming a picture he desperately didn't want to see. "I will," Frida said. "I'll tell him this week, I promise." "You'd better, because I'm not playing games here. I'm offering you a real future. Money, success, everything you've wanted. But I need to know you're all in." There was a pause, then Frida's voice quieter now. "I'm all in, Bauer. I promise. I just need a few more days." Bauer. The name rang a bell. Frida's district manager. The guy she'd mentioned occasionally over the past year. The guy who drove a Lexus and had a vacation property in Florida. The guy who was apparently offering Kelly's wife a new life. Kelly finally moved. He pushed the door fully open and stepped into the living room. They were standing by the window, close but not touching. Frida whirled around, her face going white. The man Bauer was everything Kelly expected. Mid-40s, tan, expensive suit, even on a Saturday. The kind of practiced confidence that came from a lifetime of getting what he wanted. "Kelly," Frida gasped, "you're home early. You thought I'd stay longer with my grieving mother so you could plan your escape with your boss." Kelly's voice was eerily calm. He was almost surprised by how steady it sounded. "Sorry to interrupt." "It's not what you think," Frida started, but Bauer cut her off. "Actually, it's exactly what he thinks." Bauer's eyes were cold as he looked at Kelly. Frida and I have been seeing each other for 6 months. She's been offered a position with my company in Miami, and she's accepted. She was going to tell you this week. 6 months. The words hit Kelly like a physical blow. 6 months of lies. 6 months of coming home to a woman who was planning to leave him. 6 months of kisses and conversations and shared meals that meant nothing. Frida? Kelly looked at his wife, searching her face for some sign of the woman he'd married. Is this true? Tears were streaming down her face now. I'm sorry, Kelly. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I was going to tell you, I swear. But then your dad got sick and I couldn't. You couldn't what? Couldn't wait until he was dead to run off with your rich boyfriend? Oh wait, you couldn't even wait that long. You were planning this during his funeral. That's not fair, Frida's voice broke. I've been miserable for years, Kelly. You're so content with your little teacher salary and this tiny apartment and never wanting anything more. I want a real life. I want to travel and live somewhere nice and not worry about money every single month. So you cheated on me for 6 months with your boss. She deserves better than this, Bauer interjected, his voice dripping with condescension. She deserves someone who can actually provide for her, who has ambition, who wants to succeed in life instead of babysitting teenagers for $47,000 a year. The specific mention of his salary, clearly something Frida had shared, made Kelly's stomach turn. They'd been laughing about him, pitying him, making him the joke. But Kelly didn't explode, didn't rage. Instead, he felt something cold and clear settle over him like a sheet of ice. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea what he knew that they didn't. You should leave, Kelly said quietly, looking at Bauer. This is my home. Get out. Gladly. Bauer turned to Frida. Pack your things. You can stay with me until Wednesday. Frida's staying here tonight, Kelly said. She lives here. For now. Bauer's eyes narrowed. That's her choice, not yours. Actually, Kelly said, pulling out his phone, I recorded your entire conversation. Every word, including the part where you, as Frida's direct supervisor, offered her a job in exchange for a romantic relationship. That's a clear violation of your company's ethics policy. I looked it up last month when I started getting suspicious. The color drained from Bauer's face. Your bluff. Kelly played back 15 seconds of audio. Frida's voice clear as day. I'm all in, Bauer, I promise. Your company has a zero-tolerance policy for manager-subordinate relationships, Kelly continued, especially when the manager uses their position to offer career advancement in exchange for personal involvement. I believe the term in your employee handbook is quid pro quo harassment. I'll email this to your HR department on Monday morning, unless you leave Detroit and never contact Frida again. It wasn't true. Kelly hadn't actually planned any of this. But years of watching his father navigate factory politics had taught him one thing. Powerful men like Bauer were terrified of losing their power. And right now, Kelly had it. Bauer's hands clenched. You can't. I can, and I will, unless you walk out that door right now and forget Frida exists. For a long moment, Bauer just stared at him. Then his jaw tightened. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Kelly held his gaze. Because you're going to realize that losing your $60,000 a year job and facing a harassment investigation isn't worth whatever you thought you were going to get from my wife. Now get out. Bauer looked at Frida, something ugly crossing his face. I guess I misjudged you. Turns out your husband has more spine than you gave him credit for. Then he grabbed his jacket and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The apartment fell silent except for Frida's ragged breathing. Kelly, she whispered, please, let me explain. Get out. This is my home too. Get out, Kelly repeated. Go to a hotel. Go to Tiffany's. I don't care, but you're not staying here tonight. Frida stared at him, tears streaming down her face, makeup ruined. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, for 6 months, while my father was dying. Kelly felt something breaking inside him, but he kept his voice level. You stood beside me at his funeral today and checked your watch because you couldn't wait to get back to planning your escape. So no, Frida, you don't get to be sorry. You don't get to explain. You get to leave. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands, started for the door, and then turned back. I really did love you once, Kelly. I hope you know that. I hope I stopped caring, he replied. After she left, Kelly stood in the middle of their apartment, his apartment now, and finally let himself feel it. The grief, the betrayal, the devastating loss of not just his father, but his marriage, his future, everything he'd built over the past 6 years. But underneath the pain, something else was stirring, something cold and calculating. Frida and Bauer thought they'd won, thought they were getting away clean. They had no idea what Kelly Neal was capable of when pushed, and they had no idea what he was about to discover in his father's papers that would change everything. The next morning, Kelly woke up on his mother's couch with a pounding headache and the worst emotional hangover of his life. He'd driven there after Frida left, unable to face their empty apartment. Angela had answered the door, taken one look at his face, and pulled him inside without a word. He hadn't told them everything, just that Frida had been having an affair and was leaving him. His mother had wept. Whether for him or for the fact that this happened on the day they buried Richard, Kelly couldn't tell. Probably both. Angela had alternated between fury and fierce protectiveness, making him tea and cursing Frida's name with creative combinations of profanity. Now at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning, Kelly found himself alone in the small living room. The house smelled like his childhood, his mother's cooking, old books, and the faint scent of his father's aftershave that still lingered everywhere. It made his chest ache. He pulled out his phone. 12 missed calls from Frida, 8 text messages ranging from apologies to justifications to anger. He deleted them all without reading past the first few words. There was also a message from an unknown number. This is Bauer. We need to talk. Call me. Kelly almost laughed. No chance in hell. He was about to put his phone away when he remembered something. His father's lawyer had called 3 days before the funeral, saying they needed to schedule a reading of the will. At the time, Kelly had barely registered it. His father had been a factory worker. There wouldn't be much to discuss. Probably just making sure the house went to his mother, maybe some small savings account. But now, sitting in the quiet house, Kelly felt a strange pull to his father's home office. Richard had kept meticulous records of everything, organized in labeled folders that dated back decades. If there was something to know about his father's affairs, it would be in that office. Kelly stood and padded quietly down the hallway. His mother's bedroom door was still closed. She'd probably taken one of the sleeping pills Angela had gotten her. His father's office was the small third bedroom at the end of the hall, barely big enough for a desk and a filing cabinet, but it had been Richard's sanctuary. The room looked exactly as it always had, neat, organized. The desk clear except for a few framed photos. Margaret on their wedding day in 1982, Kelly and Angela as children, various family gatherings over the years. The filing cabinet stood in the corner, 4 drawers of carefully labeled folders. Kelly sat in his father's chair, the leather worn smooth from decades of use, and felt tears prick his eyes. Yesterday he'd buried this man. Yesterday his wife had betrayed him. Yesterday his entire life had imploded, and now he was sitting in his dead father's chair, trying to hold himself together. But there was something he needed to find. Something about that lawyer's call had stuck with him. Kelly opened the filing cabinet and started looking. Tax returns, insurance policies, mortgage documents, medical bills, everything labeled, dated, organized with the precision Richard had brought to every aspect of his life. Then in the bottom drawer, Kelly found a folder simply labeled, "For Kelly." His hands shook as he pulled it out. Inside were several documents, a sealed envelope with his name on it, and what looked like statements from some kind of account. Kelly opened the envelope first. His father's handwriting, small and precise. "Dear Kelly, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to explain this in person, but I wanted to leave you something that I hope will help you understand the choices I made in my life. When I came to America, I had nothing, but I had something more valuable than money. I had time. Time to build something. Time to invest in the future. Time to be patient. 40 years ago, a coworker convinced me to put $25 a month into the company retirement plan. I never increased that amount because we needed every dollar for you kids in the house. But I never decreased it either. And I let that company match grow for 40 years. Then in 1997, another coworker gave me a tip about a new company, something about computers and books. He said he was putting $500 into this company called Amazon. I thought he was crazy. $500 was half a month's salary. But I scraped together $200 and bought shares. I forgot about those shares for years. Then in 2004, I saw something about Google going public. I took $1,000 from a small inheritance from my uncle and bought shares on the first day. Again, I forgot about them. The market scared me, and I never checked. In 2010, Apple was releasing something called an iPad. By then, the Amazon stock had grown to over $10,000. I sold half, $5,000, and put it into Apple when it was trading at around $30 per share, adjusted for splits. I never told your mother any of this. She would have worried, would have wanted to sell, would have used it for practical things. And maybe we should have. But I had this dream of leaving you and Angela something real. Something that would give you choices. Kelly, I never lived beyond my means because I wanted you to inherit wealth, not just money. I wanted you to see that contentment isn't poverty, it's security. It's not about what you spend, it's about what you build. The account information is in this folder. The password is your birth year and Angela's birth year. No special characters. I'm proud of you for being a teacher. Don't let anyone make you feel small for choosing meaning over money. But now you have both. Love, Dad. Kelly's hands were trembling so hard he almost dropped the letter. He grabbed the account statements and started reading. The numbers didn't make sense at first. His brain couldn't process them. He read them again and again. The retirement account with 40 years of $25 monthly contributions and company matching had grown to over $380,000. The Amazon shares, even after selling half in 2010, were now worth approximately $1.2 million. The Apple shares had grown to nearly $900,000. There were also some Microsoft shares, some index funds, and a handful of other investments Kelly's father had apparently made over the years, each one small and patient and forgotten. The total portfolio value, as of the last statement dated 2 weeks before his father's death, was approximately $2.7 million. Kelly stopped breathing. His father, his humble, quiet, factory worker father, who'd worn the same jacket for 15 years and driven a used Toyota for 2 decades, had been a multi-millionaire. And he'd left it all to Kelly and Angela, split equally. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you have not, because the ending of this story will blow your mind. And drop a comment below telling me what you think Kelly should do next. Kelly sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. His entire worldview was reshaping itself. Every memory of his father was reframing through this new lens. The modest house, the used cars, the careful budgeting, the clipped coupons. None of it had been poverty. All of it had been choice. His father had chosen to live simply while building a fortune in the background, all so his children would have freedom. And Frida had left him. Left him because he made $47,000 a year teaching. The irony was so sharp it almost made him laugh. Almost. Because as Kelly sat there with these papers in his hands, another thought occurred to him. Frida didn't know about this. Neither did Bauer. They'd made their calculations based on Kelly being a poor teacher who would never amount to anything. They had no idea that Kelly Neal had just inherited over $1 million. And suddenly Kelly saw a path forward, a way to handle this divorce, this betrayal, this entire nightmare situation that would ensure justice without violence, without cruelty, just consequences. But first, he needed to talk to his mother and sister. Kelly found them in the kitchen an hour later. Angela was making breakfast while their mother sat at the table, staring into a cup of coffee. They both looked up when he entered, and Angela's expression immediately shifted to concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. "I found something in Dad's office." Kelly set the folder on the table. "You both need to see this." Over the next hour, as Angela made eggs that none of them ate, and their mother cycled through shock, disbelief, and tears, Kelly explained everything. The letter, the investments, the fortune their father had built in secret. "I don't understand," Margaret kept saying. "Why didn't he tell me? We could have done so much." He explains it in the letter, Kelly said gently. He wanted to give us something permanent, something that couldn't be spent. $2.7 million, Angela whispered. She was holding the account statements, reading them over and over like they might disappear. Dad was worth $2.7 million. Split between you and me, Kelly clarified. So we each get about $1.35 million before taxes. His mother started crying again. I fought with him about money so many times. When you kids needed things, when the roof leaked, when the car broke down, and he had all this. He had a plan, Kelly said, and he followed it. He gave us everything we needed and left us everything he could. Angela's sharp eyes fixed on Kelly. What are you going to do about Frida? Kelly smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for. What does that mean? It means, Kelly said slowly, that Frida left me because I'm a poor teacher with no ambition. She and Bauer made a calculation that I wasn't worth her time or effort, so I'm going to let them live with that calculation. You're not going to tell her? Angela's eyes widened. About the money? Not yet. Not until the divorce is final. Kelly felt that cold clarity settling over him again. Frida wants out of our marriage because she thinks I'm worthless. So I'm going to give her the divorce she wants as fast as possible, with me keeping my worthless teacher salary and her walking away free and clear her amazing new life in Miami. Kelly, his mother said carefully, what are you planning? Nothing illegal, nothing cruel. I'm just going to let Frida and Bauer have exactly what they wanted, each other. Kelly met their eyes. And they'll have to live with knowing what they gave up. Over the next 2 days, Kelly made several important decisions. He called the family lawyer, Daniel Morrison, and explained the situation. Daniel was in his 60s, had known Richard for 30 years, and had handled simple legal matters for the family over the years. But his eyes sharpened considerably when Kelly mentioned the inheritance. You inherited what? Kelly showed him the statements. Daniel whistled low. Your father was a smart man, a very smart man. He looked at Kelly seriously. And your wife is leaving you for her boss, who doesn't know about any of this? Correct. When did you discover the inheritance? Sunday morning, 2 days ago. And when did your wife leave? Saturday afternoon, after the funeral. Daniel leaned back in his chair, thinking. Okay, this is delicate, but manageable. In Michigan, assets inherited during a marriage are considered separate property, not marital assets, as long as they're kept separate. Since your father died and you inherited after your separation, and the money is currently in accounts under his name, it won't be part of the divorce settlement. Even if we're not officially divorced yet? Correct, as long as you file quickly and can demonstrate that the inheritance occurred after your separation, it's yours alone. Daniel smiled slightly. Your father's timing, even in death, was impeccable. So Frida gets nothing from the inheritance? Nothing. Michigan is a no-fault divorce state, so even her affair won't affect the asset division significantly. She'll likely be entitled to half of any marital assets, your joint savings, half the value of your cars, things like that. But inherited assets stay with the inheritor. Daniel paused. I assume your marital assets are minimal? We have maybe $3,000 in joint savings and 2 cars worth a combined $12,000. Our furniture is secondhand. That's about it. Then your wife is walking away with maybe $7,000 or $8,000 total, plus whatever she's earned independently. Daniel's expression was carefully neutral. While you're keeping approximately $1.35 million, plus my teacher salary, plus your teacher salary, Daniel agreed, which she considered so worthless that she left you for someone with more money. They shared a moment of silent understanding. I want to file for divorce immediately, Kelly said. I want this done as quickly as possible. I'll draw up the papers today. Given the circumstances, your father's recent death, her affair, the clear evidence of infidelity, we can push for a fast, uncontested divorce. If she agrees to the terms, we could have this finalized in as little as 60 days. What terms should I offer? Daniel thought for a moment. Be generous with the marital assets. Make it easy for her to walk away. Offer her half of everything that's actually joint. The savings, the car she drives, half the furniture if she wants it, Don't fight her on anything. Make it look like you're just a heartbroken man who wants this over quickly, because that's exactly what she'll expect from the poor, defeated teacher. Precisely, Daniel smiled. Let her think she's getting everything she wanted. The truth will be much sweeter when she realizes what she gave up. Kelly left the lawyer's office with divorce papers that would be ready for delivery by Thursday. 3 more days. He spent those days moving methodically, carefully, making sure every step was documented and legal. He opened a new bank account at a different bank, under his name alone. He provided Daniel with power of attorney to handle the transfer of his father's investment accounts into his name. He inventoried every shared asset in the apartment, photographing everything, creating a spreadsheet of values. He also changed the locks on their apartment. In Michigan, since his name was the only one on the lease, Frida had insisted on that when they moved in, saying it would help his credit. He had the legal right to do so. He packed Frida's belongings carefully, everything she'd need, and stored them in a rented storage unit. Then he texted her the unit number and access code. Her response came within minutes. Seriously? You're locking me out of my own home? Kelly replied, It's my apartment. Only my name on the lease, but all your stuff is safe in storage. The code is in my previous message. You're being cruel. I'm being practical. Divorce papers will be delivered to your office Thursday. I suggest you read them carefully. Kelly, can we please just talk about this? No. He turned off his phone after that. Wednesday came. According to Frida's original plan, she should have been on a plane to Miami with Bauer by now, starting her glamorous new life. Instead, she was still in Detroit, staying with Tiffany according to Angela's intelligence gathering, and Bauer had apparently gone very quiet. Kelly wasn't surprised. Men like Bauer didn't actually want messy complications. They wanted easy upgrades, convenient affairs, situations that made them feel powerful. A woman whose husband had evidence of workplace harassment and was threatening to use it? That wasn't convenient anymore. On Thursday morning, Kelly went to school. His bereavement leave was over, and honestly, he needed the distraction. His students were kind, offering gentle condolences and being unusually well-behaved. By third period, Kelly felt almost normal again, until his phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. Papers delivered, she signed them. Wants me to tell you she hopes you'll be happy. Kelly stared at the message for a long moment. Frida had signed, just like that. No fight, no negotiation. She looked at the simple terms, split the savings and the car values, keep your own retirement accounts, no alimony, clean break, and she'd agreed. Because she thought she was getting the good end of the deal. She thought she was escaping poverty and a dead-end life with a teacher. She thought she was trading up. She had no idea she just signed away her claim to $1.35 million. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Kelly's situation. That afternoon, Kelly got a call from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Kelly, it's Bauer. Kelly almost hung up, but curiosity held him. What do you want? I need to explain something. Frida and we're not together anymore. That did surprise him. Really? What happened to the Miami dream? Look, I never promised her anything long-term. She misunderstood the situation. Bauer's voice was defensive. I was offering her a job opportunity. Things got complicated, but I never intended for it to become what it became. So you're saying you slept with your employee, offered her a job in another state, told her to leave her husband, and then bailed when things got messy? Kelly's voice was ice cold. That's your story? I'm saying she made assumptions. No, you made her promises to get what you wanted. And when I threatened to expose you to HR, you realized your career was worth more than whatever you were playing at with my wife. So you backed out and left her holding the bag. She was already leaving you, man. I didn't make her do anything. But you gave her a reason and a destination. Kelly felt anger heating his blood. You dangled a better life in front of her. You made her believe she could have more. And then you took it all away when it became inconvenient. Look, I'm calling to tell you I'm sorry, and to let you know I'm not going to Miami. The company decided to give that position to someone else. So whatever Frida was planning, it's not happening. Kelly absorbed this. You're telling me that Frida left me for a job that doesn't exist anymore? And a relationship that's already over? I guess so, yeah. Good, Kelly said simply, and hung up. He sat in his classroom after the last bell, staring at the student artwork on his walls, the motivational posters about perseverance and growth mindsets, the desk where he'd graded thousands of assignments over the years. This was his life. This was what he'd chosen, and Frida had thought it was worthless. But his father had understood. Richard Neal had known that wealth without meaning was empty, that the richest life wasn't measured in dollars, but in impact, that Kelly's choice to teach, to help kids understand mathematics and believe in themselves, was more valuable than any corporate salary could ever be. Kelly pulled out his phone and called Angela. Hey, she answered immediately. How are you holding up? The divorce papers are signed. Frida agreed to everything. She has no idea, does she? None. And Bauer dumped her. The Miami job doesn't exist anymore. Angela sucked in a breath. Wow, she lost everything. She lost what she thought she wanted, Kelly corrected. Now she has to figure out what she actually needs. Are you going to tell her, eventually? Kelly thought about that. Maybe, someday, when she's moved on and rebuilt her life, when she doesn't need the money anymore. But not now, not when it would just be about punishing her. You're a better person than I am, Angela said. I'd want her to know exactly what she gave up. Dad taught me something, Kelly said quietly. The best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building something so good that their betrayal doesn't matter anymore. I'm going to do that. I'm going to use this money the way he wanted, to build a life worth living, to make choices based on meaning instead of fear, to be the kind of person who doesn't need revenge because I'm too busy being happy. Angela was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad would be really proud of you, Kelly. I hope so. That night, Kelly went home to his apartment, truly his apartment now, and started making plans. He would keep teaching, at least for now, because he loved it. But he would also start a scholarship fund in his father's name for students pursuing engineering degrees. He would help his mother finally take that trip to Taiwan she'd always wanted to see. He would pay off Angela's student loans from her social work degree, and he would invest the rest carefully and patiently, the way his father had taught him. Building something for the future, creating security without ostentation, living with meaning. Frida had bet on the wrong horse. She'd thought money was everything and had left him for it. She had no idea that Kelly Neal had been worth more than she could imagine all along. 2 months later, on a cold January morning, Kelly stood in front of his students explaining compound interest. It was one of his favorite lessons because it was the one that could actually change lives. Most of his students came from working-class families like his own. They needed to understand that small, consistent investments could become fortunes with time. Let's say you invest just $25 a month starting at age 25, Kelly wrote on the board. If you earn an average annual return of 8%, by age 65, you'll have approximately $87,000. That's only $12,000 of your own money invested. The rest is compound growth. A student named Michael raised his hand. But Mr. Neal, who can afford to invest when you're making minimum wage? It was a fair question. Kelly smiled. That's the real lesson, Michael. It's not about how much you make. It's about priorities. My father made $68,000 a year his entire career. He invested $25 a month for 40 years. When he died, that single investment decision had turned into almost $400,000. The class went silent. They knew Kelly's father had recently passed. He rarely talked about personal things, but lately, he'd been sharing more. His father's story felt important. It felt like something kids needed to hear. The point isn't the amount, Kelly continued. The point is consistency, patience, understanding that wealth isn't about looking rich. It's about having choices. After class, Michael stayed behind. Mr. Neal, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about your dad, but it's cool that he left you all that money. Kelly blinked. How did you know about that? Michael looked uncomfortable. I heard some teachers talking in the hall about how you inherited a bunch of money but you're still teaching. Some of them think it's weird. So word had gotten out. Kelly wasn't really surprised. His father's funeral had been well attended. People talked. The math teacher who inherited a fortune but kept showing up to work was probably good gossip. It's not weird, Kelly said carefully. I love teaching. Money doesn't change that. But you could do anything now, right? Travel or whatever. I could. And maybe I will, someday. But right now, this is where I want to be. Kelly gestured to the classroom. These lessons matter, Michael. Understanding money matters. If I can help one of you avoid making financial mistakes, or empower one of you to start investing early, or teach one of you that your worth isn't determined by your salary, then this is exactly where I should be. Michael nodded slowly. That's pretty cool, Mr. Neal. After he left, Kelly sat at his desk, thinking. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Frida had signed the papers, taken her $7,000 from their joint assets, and moved into an apartment in Royal Oak with Tiffany. She was still working at the same medical billing company, still in the same position, still living the same life she'd been so desperate to escape, except now she was alone. Kelly had seen her once, accidentally, at the grocery store. She'd looked tired, smaller somehow. When their eyes met, she'd frozen, then quickly turned away, disappearing down another aisle. He didn't chase her, didn't try to talk. There was nothing left to say, but he'd heard things through the network of mutual acquaintances. Bauer had left Detroit entirely, taking a position in California. The Miami job had been real, but he'd given it to someone else when things got messy with Frida. Tiffany had apparently called Frida stupid for throwing away her marriage for a man who didn't actually want her. Frida's other friends from that wealthy circle had quietly distanced themselves once she was no longer part of a couple. Kelly didn't feel satisfied by any of it. He just felt sad. Sad for what they'd had and lost. Sad for the Frida he'd married, who'd apparently been so unhappy that she'd imploded their entire life. Sad for the time wasted and the trust shattered. But he was also building something new. The scholarship fund in his father's name had been established through the University of Michigan's engineering department. $25,000 a year for students from working-class families pursuing engineering degrees, with preference given to first-generation immigrants or children of immigrants. The first recipients would be announced in the spring. His mother had cried when he told her. Then she'd shown him Richard's journals, notebooks where his father had written about his investment philosophy, his dreams for his children, his thoughts on what made a good life. Reading them had been like having conversations with his father again. He was so proud of you, Margaret had told Kelly over dinner at her house. He used to tell me, Kelly chose meaning over money, and that makes him richer than I could ever make him. But he did make me rich, Mom. No, honey, he gave you money. You made yourself rich by choosing what mattered. She'd squeezed his hand. There's a difference. Angela had handled her share of the inheritance differently. She'd immediately paid off her student loans, $48,000 gone in an instant, and then put the rest into a trust for their mother and into investments for her own future. She was still working as a social worker, still helping families navigate crisis, still choosing meaning over money just like Kelly. We're Dad's kids, she'd said when they met for coffee. We don't need to prove anything with money. We just need to live well. The Friday before Valentine's Day, Kelly received an unexpected email. It was from Frida. The subject line read, I'm sorry. He almost deleted it without reading, but something made him open it. Kelly, I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't deserve your time or attention, but I need to say some things, even if you never read them. I heard you inherited money from your father, a lot of money, and I want you to know that's not why I'm writing. I don't want anything from you. I just need to tell you that I understand now what I threw away. It wasn't the money. I didn't know about the money, and honestly, if I had, it probably would have made everything worse. I would have been with you for the wrong reasons, or I would have felt justified in my resentment that we live modestly despite having wealth. What I threw away was you, your kindness, your principles, your quiet strength. The way you chose teaching because it mattered, not because it paid well. The way you honored your father by living according to his values instead of trying to impress people with expensive things. I was so focused on status and appearances and what other people had that I couldn't see what I already had. A good man who loved me, a simple but stable life, the freedom to make choices based on values instead of fear. Bauer was a fantasy. He represented escape from feeling ordinary. But ordinary was the gift, Kelly. Ordinary was where real life happened, and I traded it for nothing. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I know I destroyed that forever when I checked my watch at your father's funeral and thought about another man. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I lost, and I'm sorry. I hope you're happy. I hope you find someone who values what I couldn't see, and I hope your father is resting peacefully, knowing he raised someone who stayed true to himself no matter what. Frida. Kelly read the email 3 times. Then he sat with it, letting himself feel the complicated mixture of emotions it stirred up. Anger, sadness, a strange kind of relief that she understood finally what had actually mattered. But no desire to respond, no need to reassure her or absolve her or engage at all. That chapter was closed. Instead, Kelly did something his father would have appreciated. He went to the bank and made a donation to the food bank Richard had volunteered at for 20 years. $5,000 in his father's name. Then he called his mother and took her to dinner at the modest Chinese restaurant they'd been going to since Kelly was a child. They talked about Richard, about memories, about the future, about how wealth was measured in love and legacy, not dollar signs. Your father used to say something, Margaret told him over fried rice. He'd say, the richest man is the one who needs the least to be happy. He was right, Kelly said. But he also wanted you to have choices, Kelly. Don't let his humility make you feel guilty about having money. Use it, travel, experience things, build a life that's bigger than just duty and work. Kelly smiled. I am, Mom, I promise. I'm planning a trip to Taiwan for the summer. Want to come with me? We could visit Dad's village, see where he came from. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. He would have loved that. Then let's do it, and let's do it right. Nice hotels, good food, no cutting corners. Dad would want us to enjoy it. Spring came. The scholarship recipients were announced. 5 students, including a young woman whose father was a janitor and who wanted to study aerospace engineering. Kelly attended the award ceremony and felt his father's presence so strongly it made his chest tight. At school, his reputation had shifted. Students started coming to him for financial advice. Teachers asked about investment strategies. The principal approached him about teaching a personal finance elective next year. We need more of this, Principal Davis said. Kids need to understand money, especially kids from families that never had much. You could make a real difference. I'll do it, Kelly agreed. But on one condition, we make it required for seniors. Everyone should graduate understanding compound interest, credit scores, and investment basics. Deal. In May, Kelly got another unexpected message, this time from Bauer. Kelly, I need to talk to you about Frida. Can you call me? Kelly stared at the text for a long time. Then he blocked the number. Whatever was happening with Frida was no longer his problem. He'd moved on, built something new, created a life that honored his father's legacy while being authentically his own. He was dating someone new, a fellow teacher named Lisa, who taught English and shared his love of quiet evenings and good conversations. She knew about the inheritance, knew about Frida, knew all of it, and she looked at him and said, I'm glad you kept teaching. Money's nice, but purpose is better. She got it, just like his father had gotten it. On Father's Day, Kelly stood at his father's grave with Angela and his mother. They'd brought flowers and spent the afternoon telling stories, laughing and crying in equal measure. Dad, Kelly said quietly, kneeling by the headstone, I wanted to thank you. Not just for the money, though, that was incredible, but for showing me that wealth and richness are different things. You were rich in the ways that mattered long before you had money in the bank, and you taught me to be the same. He touched the cool stone, feeling connected across the boundary of life and death. Frida left me because she thought I wasn't enough. She thought money was everything. But you taught me that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living so well that betrayal becomes irrelevant. So that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching, I'm building, I'm helping, I'm choosing meaning, just like you did. Angela put her hand on his shoulder. He knows, Kelly. He knows. That summer, Kelly and his mother traveled to Taiwan. They visited Richard's childhood village, met distant relatives, toured the universities where Richard had dreamed of studying before immigrating. They ate at night markets and hiked in mountains and learned about the country Richard had left behind to build a better life for his family. One night, sitting on a hotel balcony overlooking Taipei, Margaret told Kelly a story she'd never shared before. When your father first told me he was putting money into the stock market, I was furious. We needed that money for practical things. But he said something that made me understand. He said, I'm not investing in companies. I'm investing in our children's freedom, freedom to choose teaching over sales, freedom to be social workers instead of lawyers, freedom to measure success by impact instead of income. Kelly felt tears on his face. He really said that? He did. And he was right. Margaret looked at her son. You're free, Kelly. Free to live according to your values. Free to teach because you love it, not because you need the money. Free to be the man your father raised you to be. That's the real inheritance. What did you learn from all this? She asked him later. Kelly thought carefully. I learned that Frida was right about one thing. I wasn't ambitious in the way she wanted. I wasn't interested in status or appearances or climbing corporate ladders, but I was ambitious about things that mattered, about being a good teacher, about helping kids, about living with integrity. He paused, watching the city lights. I also learned that the best revenge is no revenge. Frida bet that I was worthless. She lost that bet, but her losing didn't make me win. I was already winning. I just didn't know how to see it. And now? Now I see it clearly. Wealth isn't about bank accounts. It's about waking up every day and knowing you're doing something that matters. It's about having people you love and who love you back. It's about making choices that honor the sacrifices others made for you. Kelly looked at his mother. Dad was rich long before he had $2.7 million. He was rich because he had you and us and a life filled with purpose. The money was just the proof that patience and principle pay off. But the real payoff was the life he lived. Margaret wiped her eyes. I wish he could hear you say that. I think he can, Kelly said. I think he knows. When they returned to Detroit, Kelly made his final major decision about the inheritance. He would keep $1 million invested, growing slowly and securely, ensuring long-term financial freedom. The remaining $350,000 would be put toward building something his father would have loved. The Richard Neal Community Learning Center opened 18 months later in a renovated building near Kelly's old high school. It offered free tutoring in math and science for students from working-class families. It provided financial literacy workshops for adults. It had a small computer lab and a library filled with books about investing, engineering, and achieving dreams through patience and discipline. Frida attended the grand opening. Kelly saw her in the back of the room during his speech, tears streaming down her face. Afterward, she approached him carefully. Kelly, she said quietly, this is beautiful. Your dad would be so proud. Thank you, Kelly replied. And he meant it. There was no anger left, no bitterness, just acknowledgement of what had been and what was now. I need to tell you something, Frida continued. Bauer reached out to me a few months ago. He wanted to get back together, said he'd made a mistake. Kelly waited. I told him no, because I finally understood what you tried to show me. That character matters more than career. That kindness matters more than money. That the man who stays true to himself is worth more than the man who sells himself for status. She looked at Kelly with genuine regret. I was chasing the wrong thing, and by the time I figured it out, I'd already thrown away the right thing. I hope you find what you're looking for, Kelly said sincerely. I hope you build a good life. I hope so too, Frida smiled sadly. For what it's worth, seeing what you've built here, seeing how you've honored your father, it makes me understand why you were checking your watch at the funeral. Kelly frowned. I wasn't checking my watch. That was you. Frida shook her head. No, Kelly. After the service, when everyone was leaving, I saw you check your phone. I assumed you were being rude, but Angela told me later that you'd been looking at your father's last text message to you, reading it over and over. You weren't being disrespectful. You were grieving. Kelly's throat tightened. He had done that. His father's last text had been sent 2 days before he died. Proud of you, son. Always was. Always will be. I was wrong about so many things, Frida whispered. I'm sorry I didn't see who you really were. I'm sorry too, Kelly said. I'm sorry you were unhappy. I'm sorry I didn't notice. I'm sorry we couldn't find a way to fix it before it broke completely. We weren't right for each other, Frida said, but that doesn't mean you weren't right. You were exactly who you should be. I was the one who needed to change. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Frida touched his arm gently. Thank you for this, for the center, for honoring your dad this way, for showing all of us what really matters. After she left, Lisa found Kelly and took his hand. You okay? Yeah, Kelly said, meaning it. I really am. That night, standing in the learning center his father's sacrifice had made possible, Kelly thought about the full journey, the funeral where everything fell apart, the discovery that changed everything, the divorce that freed him, the rebuilding that defined him. His father had given him two gifts. The money was one, but the greater gift was the lesson that wealth means nothing without character, that success means nothing without meaning, and that the richest life is the one lived according to principles that outlast you. Frida had checked her watch at the funeral because she was eager to escape a life she found limiting. She'd wanted more. More money, more status, more excitement. Kelly had discovered he already had everything that mattered. He just hadn't known how to count it. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's letting people face the consequences of their own choices while you build something so beautiful they can only watch from the outside. Kelly Neal learned that wealth is measured in legacy, not luxury. That the richest inheritance isn't money but values. That the greatest tribute to a parent is living in a way that honors their sacrifice. His father had worked for $68,000 a year and died a multimillionaire. But he'd been rich long before the bank accounts proved it. He'd been rich in the ways that actually mattered. In love, in purpose, in the knowledge that he'd raised children who understood the difference between having money and being truly wealthy. Kelly checked his watch one last time that night. It was late. Time to go home. Time to rest. Time to wake up tomorrow and do it all again. Teaching, helping, building, living. Not for money, not for status, not to prove anything to anyone, but because that's what good men do. They show up. They serve. They build legacies that outlast them. Just like Richard Neal taught his son to do.